This story is titled, Late in the Evening, a message alerted me that my wife had accidentally sent me a home video of herself with another man. Hey everyone, I'm a 29-year-old corporate lawyer living in Phoenix. My career has been successful enough that I make more than enough money to live comfortably. I thought I had the perfect life, a great job, a nice home, and what I believed was a happy marriage to Lisa, my wife of 8 years. It all changed on what should have been just another ordinary Wednesday evening. I was relaxing on our leather couch in the living room, a half-finished bottle of craft IPA sitting on the coffee table beside me. I was mindlessly scrolling through my phone, not really focusing on anything in particular. Lisa was upstairs in her home office, where she'd been spending most of her evenings since getting a promotion at work. She'd been working late every night for weeks now, but I never questioned it. Trust had been the foundation of our relationship for 8 years. At least that's what I believed. Looking back, I realize how naive that sounds. The sharp ping of my phone broke through my thoughts. A message notification appeared on my screen from Lisa, which struck me as odd. Why would she be texting me when she was just upstairs? I opened the message expecting to find a grocery list or some mundane household question. Instead, what I saw was a video thumbnail showing some dimly lit room with red ambient lighting. My stomach instantly dropped. Something about the image felt wrong, and my thumb hovered hesitantly over the play button while my brain screamed at me to stop. But curiosity won out over instinct. I pressed play anyway. The video was only a minute long, but it felt like an eternity. It was Lisa, with some man I had never seen before, doing things I can never unsee. What hit me hardest wasn't just the physical betrayal. It was the way she laughed in the video, the intimate way she touched him. There was clearly an emotional connection there. She was genuinely enjoying herself, completely uninhibited in a way I hadn't seen in years. My body went completely numb as I watched it again, and then again. Each viewing revealed new, painful details that felt like knives twisting in my chest. The realization slowly dawned on me. This wasn't meant for me. She must have sent it by accident. My chest tightened as thousands of thoughts raced through my head. Who was this man? How long had this been happening? What was I going to do? My first instinct was to storm upstairs and confront her immediately, but then a cold, calculating thought stopped me. If she didn't know I had seen the video, I had the advantage. I could use this time to plan my next move carefully. I deleted the video from my messages, though I had already saved a copy elsewhere. I sank back into the couch, my mind already working on what would come next. I knew one thing for certain. She wasn't getting away with this. But first, I needed more proof. I wanted to make her regret every second of her betrayal. I needed to plan something she would never forget. I began mentally rehearsing my role in this twisted game. She couldn't know that I'd seen the video. Not yet. The element of surprise would be my greatest weapon. "Hey, honey!" Lisa called from upstairs, her voice sounding as sweet and innocent as ever. "Want some chamomile tea? I'm making myself a cup." I looked up toward the staircase, forcing my face to remain neutral despite the rage boiling inside me. My heart was pounding so hard against my ribcage, I was afraid she might hear it from where she stood. "Sure, thanks," I replied, keeping my voice perfectly casual. I had to stay calm. She had no idea what I had just discovered. A few minutes later, she came downstairs wearing the silk robe I had bought her for our 5th anniversary. The sight of it made my stomach turn, as all our memories together suddenly felt tainted. She handed me the tea and kissed my forehead like nothing was wrong before settling next to me on the couch. "Long day?" she asked, casually brushing her hair back. She was acting completely normal, as if she hadn't just destroyed everything we had built together. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, but she didn't even check it. She was too comfortable in her lies, not even trying to hide them anymore. I watched her face for any sign of panic or worry, but there was nothing. "Yeah," I replied, taking a sip of tea. It took every ounce of willpower to keep my hand steady, fighting the urge to throw the mug across the room. "Same old stuff at work. You busy?" "Ugh, so many meetings and emails," she sighed dramatically. "You know how it goes." She smiled at me, and for a split second, I almost believed her. Then I remembered the video, the way she had smiled at him. The pain stabbed through my chest again, and I had to look away before I lost my composure. "Sounds exhausting," I muttered, pretending to focus on the TV. I spent the rest of the evening playing my part perfectly. I laughed at her jokes, made small talk, and even rubbed her shoulders when she complained about neck pain. Every touch made my skin crawl. I couldn't stop thinking about her hands on him. How many times had she touched him? How many times had she kissed him with the same lips she used to kiss me goodnight? Finally, she headed upstairs to bed. I told her I wanted to finish watching the show we had on, but the truth was, I couldn't bear to lie next to her. The moment she was gone, I grabbed my phone and started investigating. I checked her messages first, but found nothing suspicious. Either she was deleting them or using a different app. I checked her social media accounts too, still nothing. She was good at covering her tracks, I had to give her that. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table again. My eyes darted to the screen as the notification lit up. It was a message from someone named Ryan. Just the first name, no photo. My first real clue. I couldn't access her phone yet. I didn't have her password, but I didn't need it right now. I just needed to wait for the right moment, maybe catch her entering it or find another way in. For now, I had a name. That was enough to start with. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Lisa was still asleep in our bed, her hair spread across the pillow as if nothing had changed. I stood in the doorway watching her for a moment, the woman I thought I knew. It was hard to match this peaceful image with the person from the video, but the anger burned hot in my chest, fueling my resolve. She wasn't going to break me, not without consequences. I was already at the kitchen table when she woke up, sipping dark roast coffee and scrolling through my laptop. She walked in yawning and stretching, acting like she didn't have a care in the world. "Morning," she said, leaning down to kiss me. I forced myself to let her, keeping the revulsion from showing on my face. "Morning," I replied with a smile that felt like a grimace. While she made breakfast, I casually mentioned my plans for the day. "Think I'm working late tonight," I said, making sure my tone was completely normal. "Might grab drinks with guys from work after. Don't wait up." She nodded with her back turned to me, pouring granola into a ceramic bowl. "That's fine, I've got tons of work anyway." "I bet you do," I thought bitterly. I could already see a plan forming in my mind. Tonight, I would start tracking her movements. I needed to know where she went, who she met. It wasn't enough just knowing she was cheating. I needed solid proof. Proof I could use to destroy her world completely. "By the way," I added, keeping my tone casual, "your phone was buzzing last night. Might want to check it." She froze for a fraction of a second, just long enough for me to notice. Then she shrugged like it was nothing. "Probably work stuff," she said lightly. But when she sat at the table, her movements were too careful, too deliberate. She unlocked her phone quickly, glanced at the screen, and put it face down immediately. I left the house at exactly 6 p.m., just like I said I would. But instead of meeting friends for drinks, I parked around the corner from our house. I turned off the engine and lights and waited. If she thought I was out drinking, she'd feel free to do whatever or whoever she wanted. Sure enough, by 7:15 p.m., Lisa left the house. I followed at a safe distance, keeping my headlights off until there were enough cars between us that she wouldn't notice. She drove across the city, taking an unfamiliar route that I'd never seen her use before. Finally, she pulled into the parking lot of a fancy boutique hotel called the Oasis Resort. My chest tightened as I watched her get out of her car. She glanced around nervously before disappearing inside. Every suspicion I had was being confirmed right before my eyes. I sat in my car, fists clenched around the steering wheel. Part of me wanted to storm in there, confront her and this Ryan guy right now, and demand answers. But that wasn't the plan. Not yet. This wasn't just about catching them in the act. It was about building my case. I needed evidence of every lie, every betrayal. She was going to pay for all of it. I pulled out my phone and started recording, zooming in on the hotel entrance. This would be just the beginning of the proof I would gather. I sat in my car outside the hotel, watching the minutes tick by on the dashboard clock. My hands were itching to do something. Text her, call her, burst through the front doors and make her explain herself. But I couldn't let emotions take over. If I wanted to destroy her completely, I needed to be smart and strategic. I had to let her think she was still in control. The parking lot was half empty, dimly lit by flickering street lamps. Her silver Lexus was parked near the entrance, right where I could keep an eye on it. Every time the automatic doors slid open, I held my breath, hoping to catch a glimpse of them. Minutes stretched into hours as I stayed glued to my seat, phone ready in hand, waiting for the perfect moment. Finally, just after 9:30 p.m., the doors opened again. My pulse spiked when I saw Lisa step out. She was laughing softly, her hand brushing the arm of a tall man I didn't recognize. He was well-dressed in an expensive suit and looked way too comfortable with my wife. I instinctively grabbed my phone, switched to camera mode, and zoomed in close. I recorded every second, the way she leaned into him, her hand lingering on his chest, how he held the door open for her as she slid into the passenger seat of his car, a black Mercedes. They pulled out of the parking lot, and I followed at a distance, headlights still off until we were far enough away from the hotel. They drove to a quiet residential area and parked outside a sleek modern townhouse. I watched them enter, the door closing behind them as blood boiled in my veins. I sat frozen for a moment, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. But there was no time for hesitation. I needed more evidence. I parked a block away and approached the house on foot, my heart pounding with every step. The curtains were drawn, but I could see the faint glow of lights inside. They were still there. I pulled out my phone and activated the voice recorder, pressing it against the crack of a slightly open window. The voices inside were muffled, but I could catch snippets of conversation. Laughter, murmurs, then something that shattered whatever resolve I had left. "Ryan," she sighed, her voice dripping with affection. "You have no idea how much I've missed this." I pulled back from the window, my entire body shaking. My mind was screaming at me to storm in there, make a scene, tear their little world apart. But I forced myself to step away. Not yet. Not like this. I'd come too far to let rage ruin everything. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table nursing a black coffee and staring blankly at the wall. Lisa breezed in, humming to herself, the picture of innocence. She kissed my cheek, her lips warm but meaningless. "How was your night?" she asked, her tone casual as if she were simply making conversation. I forced a smile. "Uneventful. Just hung out with the guys." "You?" She shrugged while pouring herself a glass of orange juice. "Worked late, then went to bed. Nothing exciting." The lies rolled off her tongue so smoothly that I almost admired it. Almost. I let the silence hang for a moment, watching her sip her juice, acting like she hadn't torn our marriage apart with her betrayal. "That's good," I said finally, standing up and grabbing my keys. "Got an early meeting. See you tonight." She waved me off, already scrolling through her phone. My stomach twisted as I watched her, wondering who she was texting now. Him? Did she even bother deleting messages anymore? I couldn't focus at work. My mind was swirling with plans and possibilities. The hotel footage and townhouse audio were damning, but I wanted more. I needed more. This wasn't just about exposing her affair. It was about making her feel the full weight of betrayal. It was about turning the life she had built into a pile of ashes. I spent my lunch break digging deeper into Ryan. His car had a dealership logo on the back, so I started there. I searched local listings until I found a match. A quick cross-reference with the license plate from my video led me to his full name, Ryan Thompson. He was a high-end property developer specializing in luxury condos. Perfect. I scoured his social media accounts, piecing together a picture of the man who thought he could take what was mine. He was polished, successful, and single, a walking cliché. His posts were full of motivational quotes, photos of expensive watches and designer suits. But his captions revealed who he really was, a man who loved attention and liked to show off. That was going to be his downfall. I returned home that evening to find Lisa on the couch, scrolling through Netflix. She looked up as I walked in, her expression unreadable. "Hey," she said, "dinner's in the fridge if you're hungry." "Thanks," I replied, keeping my voice calm and detached. I wasn't hungry, but I needed an excuse to be in the kitchen. While pretending to look through the fridge, I glanced at her phone on the counter. It was unlocked. This was my chance. "Hey, can you grab me a glass of water?" I called over my shoulder, creating a diversion. "Sure," she replied, standing and heading to the cabinet. In the 2 seconds her back was turned, I snatched her phone and slipped it into my pocket. By the time she returned, I was already sitting at the table scrolling through my own phone as if nothing had happened. "Thanks," I said, taking the water and flashing her a quick smile. Later that night, I locked myself in the bathroom and finally opened her phone. My hands shook as I scrolled through her messages, searching for anything confirming what I already knew. It didn't take long to find Ryan. Their conversation was buried under a bland work thread, but the messages were far from professional. "Last night was incredible," one message from him read. "Can't wait to see you again." Her reply, "Me too, same time next week." I took screenshots of everything and backed them up to my email. When I was done, I wiped the phone clean of any trace that I had touched it and placed it back exactly where I had found it. I climbed into bed where Lisa was fast asleep, her breathing soft and steady. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing with plans. The evidence was piling up. Soon, I would have enough to burn her world to the ground. By the next morning, I had formulated the perfect plan, not just to expose her affair, but to humiliate her in a way she would never recover from. She had taken my trust and spit on it. Now it was my turn to take everything she valued and crush it completely. But I needed precision. No angry outbursts, no missteps. This was a game of chess, and I was already 3 moves ahead. Lisa was at the kitchen table the next morning, sipping a vanilla latte and scrolling through her phone. Probably texting Ryan. She glanced up as I grabbed my keys. "Leaving early?" she asked, her tone casual. "Yeah," I replied with a forced smile. "Big project at work. Might be late tonight too." She nodded, not even trying to hide her relief. The sooner I was out of the house, the freer she'd feel to sneak around. I could practically see the gears turning in her head. Good. Let her think she was in control. I left the house, but instead of heading to work, I parked a few blocks away and waited. If she was meeting him today, I'd be ready. Around noon, her white Lexus pulled out of the driveway. I followed at a safe distance, watching as she drove to the same hotel as before. My jaw tightened as she parked and walked inside, her steps hurried and eager. I waited a few minutes, then followed. I'd already recorded her entering the hotel last time. Today, I wanted to take it further. I stepped inside the lobby and scanned the room for any sign of them. My heart was pounding as I approached the reception desk, feigning confidence. "Hi," I said to the clerk, flashing my friendliest smile. "I'm supposed to meet my wife here. I can't remember if she said room 315 or 317. Could you remind me?" The clerk frowned. "Sorry, sir, we can't share room numbers." "Of course," I said, pretending to be exasperated. "You're just doing your job. Well, it's our anniversary. I'm trying to surprise her." She checked in earlier, Lisa Miller. The clerk hesitated, then softened. "Oh, that's sweet. Let me check." She typed into the computer, then smiled. "Room 319. "Thank you so much," I said, my voice warm, though inside I felt ice cold. I made my way to the 3rd floor, my footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. When I reached room 319, I paused and pressed my ear to the door. Faint voices leaked through the wood, hers and his. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Laughter, flirtation, intimacy. My stomach churned, but I held steady. I pulled out my phone, turned on the camera, and hit record. First, I filmed the door, capturing the room number and the voices. Then I took a quick glance around to make sure the hallway was empty, before sliding my phone under the door, angling it upward. The screen showed just enough, their legs, their movements, all I needed for proof. After a minute, I retrieved my phone and walked away, my heart pounding with a mix of fury and adrenaline. This was more than enough evidence, but I wasn't done yet. That evening, I returned home to find Lisa cooking dinner. The sound of her humming as if she didn't have a care in the world made my blood boil. I forced a smile, though it felt like a mask cracking at the edges. "How was your day?" she asked, glancing over her shoulder. "Busy," I said, keeping my tone light. "Yours?" She hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Pretty uneventful, just work stuff." Liar. As we ate dinner, I made a point of being attentive, asking about her day, laughing at her jokes. She was completely at ease by the time we cleared the plates. She even kissed me goodnight before heading to bed. But I wasn't going to bed? Not yet. I pulled out my laptop and got to work. First, I edited the footage from the hotel, stitching it together with screenshots of texts and adding the audio recorded from the townhouse. By the time I was done, I had a damning montage that left no room for doubt. Lisa's betrayal was undeniable. I wanted to make sure everyone knew. I set up a series of email drafts, addressing them to key people in her life, her boss, her closest friends, even her mother. Each email included the video with a simple message attached. Thought you deserved to know the truth. I didn't send them yet. Timing was everything. I needed to wait for the perfect moment when the fallout would hit her hardest. The next morning, I casually mentioned an idea over breakfast. "We should host a dinner party," I suggested. Lisa lit up at the suggestion, clearly thrilled that I was acting like my old self again. "That's a great idea," she said enthusiastically, already rattling off a list of people to invite. "It's been too long since we had everyone over." I nodded while hiding a smirk. A dinner party would be the perfect setting to drop my bombshell. Everyone she cared about would be there, no escaping the truth. By the time the party rolled around a week later, I had everything in place. Emails were queued and evidence was ready. I felt calm, almost eerily so. Lisa was totally oblivious as she flitted around the house greeting guests and playing the perfect hostess. As the evening wore on, I waited for just the right moment. When the room was full of laughter and conversation, I stood up and tapped my glass to get everyone's attention. "Can I have a moment?" I said, my voice steady. "I just want to say how grateful I am for all of you being here and for supporting Lisa and me over the years. It means a lot to us." Lisa beamed at me, her eyes shining with affection. For a second, I almost faltered. Almost. "And because you've all been such a big part of our lives," I continued smoothly, "I think it's only fair that you know the truth about what's been happening in our marriage." The room fell silent. Lisa's smile froze, her face going pale as she realized where this was going. "I've put together a little video," I said, pulling out my laptop and connecting it to the TV. "Lisa, I think you'll find this illuminating." The room was thick with anticipation as the video began to play. All eyes were on the TV as the opening footage showed the hotel entrance with Lisa and Ryan walking arm in arm. Gasps rippled through the room as the scenes unfolded. Text exchanges, shared laughter, and the damning footage from under the door. I watched the faces around me turn from confusion to shock, then disgust. And then there was Lisa, frozen in her seat, wine glass trembling in her hand, face drained of color as the truth unfolded before everyone she cared about. Quiet whispers from friends and family cut through the silence like knives. "Is this real?" someone whispered. "Oh my God, Lisa." Lisa shot out of her chair, her voice cracking. "Stop this right now!" I ignored her, my face impassive, and let the video play to its humiliating conclusion. When it finally ended, I stood up and faced the room. "I'm sorry you all had to see that," I said calmly. "But I thought you deserved to know the truth. This is what Lisa's been doing behind my back for months. And Ryan Thompson, well, I'm sure his high-end property clients will find this equally enlightening." Her mother's gasp echoed in the room. Lisa's sister muttered something and stormed out. One of her friends tried to stand as if about to defend her, but couldn't find the words. "Mark!" Lisa screeched, her voice rising with desperation. "How could you do this to me? How could you do this to us? How could you do this to us?" I shot back, my voice cold as ice. "Don't play the victim now, Lisa. You made your bed, literally, and now everyone knows it." The guests left quickly, murmuring awkward apologies and shuffling out the door. Even her closest friends avoided her gaze. Lisa stood in the middle of the living room, trembling, her face streaked with tears. "How could you humiliate me like that?" she choked out once we were alone. "Humiliate you?" I laughed bitterly. "You did this to yourself, Lisa. I just made sure everyone saw you for who you really are." "I was going to tell you," she cried, her voice breaking. "When? After you brought Ryan to one of these dinners? Don't insult my intelligence." Her defenses crumbled as she sank into the couch, sobbing into her hands. I felt nothing, not pity, not anger, not even satisfaction. Just cold detachment. "I'll be staying with my brother tonight," I said, grabbing my coat. "When I get back, I expect you to be gone." I didn't actually stay with my brother, though. I drove to a Marriott a few miles away and sat in the dim room, staring at my phone. The emails I had queued earlier were still waiting, just one click away from delivery. They weren't just going to Lisa's boss and family. Oh no, I had sent a few to Ryan's world too. His development firm, his biggest investors, even his mother. Every key figure in his life was about to learn exactly who he was. I hovered over the send button, thinking about the chaos this would unleash. Then I pressed it. By the next morning, the fallout was already in motion. Lisa's phone was blowing up with calls and messages, but I ignored her completely. I let the texts pile up unread. I didn't care what she had to say anymore. I focused on watching the aftermath unfold. Her boss called me that afternoon, apologizing profusely for the unfortunate situation and assuring me they would be reviewing Lisa's position. As for Ryan, his social media had gone dark, with comments on his last few posts turning vicious. His polished image was crumbling under the weight of the scandal. It wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about erasure. I wanted them both to feel what I felt, like their entire world had been ripped out from under them. That evening, I returned to the house. Lisa was still there, her bags packed, sitting by the door. She looked up as I entered, her face a mix of shame and desperation. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Save it," I said, brushing past her. "Mark, please," she pleaded. "I'll do anything to fix this. Just tell me what to do." I turned to her, my expression completely blank. "There's nothing to fix, Lisa. You broke us. Now you can live with it." Her shoulders slumped. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the video, the texts, the lies. She didn't deserve forgiveness. "Leave your keys on the counter," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "Don't come back." She nodded silently, picked up her bags, and walked out the door. I didn't watch her leave. The house was quiet that night. Too quiet. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of peace. Lisa was gone. I had made sure she would never forget what she did. But the story wasn't over yet. The days that followed were a whirlwind of fallout, though I kept my distance from it all. Lisa had left behind not just her keys, but the chaos of her unraveling life. I made sure to stay one step ahead and watched as the world she had meticulously curated crumbled around her. It started with her job. Her boss didn't just review her position, he terminated it. I got a particular satisfaction from reading the company-wide memo about upholding core values and professional conduct. Though her name wasn't mentioned, everyone in the industry knew exactly who it referred to. Her name began disappearing from websites and press releases as if she had never existed. Next came her social circle. Word travels fast, and those who weren't at the dinner party soon heard about the video. Lisa became a complete pariah almost overnight. Friends who once flocked to her Instagram with heart emojis now unfollowed in droves. By the end of the week, she had deleted all her social media accounts. And then there was Ryan. His downfall was even more satisfying. His development firm put out a statement distancing themselves from him, calling the incident deeply regrettable. Several high-profile investors walked away, including one who went viral for publicly calling him untrustworthy. By the time I was done, his polished, successful image was tarnished beyond repair. A week after Lisa left, I received an unexpected text from her mother. "Mark, I don't know the full story, but please call me. I want to understand what happened." I stared at the message for a while, debating whether to respond. She'd always been kind to me, but I wasn't in the mood to play mediator. Still, curiosity won out, and I called her later that evening. Her voice sounded weary when she answered. "Mark, I'm so sorry. I had no idea Lisa was capable of this. I didn't say anything. Just let the weight of her words settle between us." She continued, her voice faltering. "She came to stay with me for a few days. She's a mess. She told me about the dinner party, about the emails. She's devastated." "Good," I said coldly. A long pause followed. I understand why you're angry. You have every right to be. But she's still my daughter. I don't want her to spiral." "Spiral?" I repeated, my voice sharp. "She didn't spiral when she was sneaking around with Ryan. She didn't spiral when she accidentally sent me that video. She only cares because her life is falling apart." Her mother sighed heavily. "You're right, but I just wanted to ask, would you consider talking to her? Maybe closure would help." "Closure?" I let out a bitter laugh. "I've already given her closure. She can live with the consequences." Her mother hesitated. "She asked me to pass along a message. She said to tell Mark I'll love him forever, even if he can't forgive me." I froze for a moment. The words hit me like a wave, something I hadn't expected, but I quickly hardened my resolve. "Tell her she should have thought about that before she betrayed me," I said flatly, and ended the call. That night, I finally allowed myself a drink I could truly enjoy. I sat in the silence of the house, thinking about how quickly life had changed. There was still an ache, a hollow part of me that mourned the life I thought I had. But every time I felt it creeping in, I reminded myself of what she did. I thought I would feel more satisfaction, but the truth was, revenge felt hollow. Lisa was gone, Ryan was destroyed, yet I didn't feel like I had won. I felt like I had survived. 2 weeks later, I came home to an envelope on my porch. There was no return address, just my name written in Lisa's handwriting. I hesitated before opening it, unsure if I wanted to know what she had to say. Inside was a letter written in shaky cursive. "Mark, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, and I can't blame you for that. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to respond. But I need you to know how sorry I am. Not for the consequences, I deserve those, but for the way I betrayed you. I wish I could take it all back. I wish I'd been stronger, better, more honest. You deserved someone who cherished you and I failed. I hope you find peace, even if it's without me. Lisa." I read the letter twice, then folded it and set it on the marble counter. The words felt empty, like an afterthought. She was right about one thing, though. I would find peace, but it would be without her. I thought that was the end of it, but a few days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I picked up, a frantic voice greeted me. "Is this Mark Miller?" "Yes, who's this?" "This is Amanda Thompson. I'm Ryan's ex-wife." The name hit me like a jolt of electricity. "What do you want?" I asked, my tone guarded. I need to know. Did you send that video to everyone?" I hesitated. "I sent it to people who needed to see it. Why? She sighed, her voice cracking. Because my kids saw it. My kids? They're in high school. Someone sent it to them. Ryan's been banned from seeing them for now. I needed to know who did this. A strange mix of emotions swirled within me. Vindication, guilt, and something darker. I hadn't considered the collateral damage. I'm sorry your kids got dragged into this, I said finally. But your ex should have thought about that before he wrecked my marriage. She was silent for a long moment. I hope this was worth it, Mr. Miller. I really do. The line went dead. That night, I lay in bed, her words replaying in my mind. Was it worth it? Had I gone too far? But every time I questioned myself, I remembered the video, the lies, the humiliation. Yes, it was worth it. And it wasn't over yet. Days after Amanda Thompson's call, things were quieter but not peaceful. Her words echoed in my mind, gnawing at the edges of my thoughts. I hope this was worth it. I kept convincing myself it was. Lisa's betrayal deserved nothing less. Yet there was a part of me I couldn't silence, a whisper of doubt questioning whether I had burned too much in my pursuit of vengeance. One morning, while sipping my espresso, I noticed a letter in the mail addressed to me. The handwriting was neat but unfamiliar. I opened it and immediately felt my pulse quicken as I read. Mr. Miller, my name is William Blackwood. I'm a private investigator hired by Ryan Thompson. He's pursuing legal action for defamation and emotional distress caused by the distribution of private footage involving your wife. If you'd like to avoid escalation, I strongly suggest we discuss this matter. Please contact me at the number below. Sincerely, William Blackwood. I slammed the letter onto the granite counter, my chest tightening with anger. The audacity of that man. Ryan, not content with ruining my marriage, now wanted to paint himself as the victim. My first instinct was to ignore it, to let him try. He'd have to crawl out of the wreckage I had left him in before he could even think of legal action. But a flicker of caution stopped me. I needed to make sure all my bases were covered. That evening, I met with my lawyer, an old friend who owed me more than a few favors. I handed him the letter, my jaw tight with tension. Defamation, he said, scanning the page. That's a stretch given everything you've got on him. So I'm safe? I asked, though the question tasted bitter. He set the letter down and leaned back, his expression thoughtful. Legally, probably. But it depends what you sent out. If anything could be construed as revenge porn, even unintentionally, he might have a case. You said you shared a video. Who'd you send it to? I listed the recipients. Lisa's boss, Ryan's clients, a few key figures in their lives. My lawyer's eyes narrowed. Mark, you're walking a fine line here. Sharing proof of infidelity is one thing, but if the video contains anything explicit, you could face legal trouble. Especially if minors like his kids ended up seeing it. My stomach sank. I hadn't thought about the legal implications. I had been blinded by anger and the need for justice. So what do I do? For now, sit tight. If they contact you again, forward it to me. But Mark? He leaned forward, his tone firm. Don't send anything else. No more videos, no more emails. You've done enough. I spent the next few days on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Ryan stayed quiet, but I knew he wasn't finished. A man with nothing left to lose is dangerous. Lisa tried reaching out again. Another letter appeared on my doorstep, this one longer and more desperate. Mark, I've hit rock bottom, and it's all my fault. I know I have no right to ask anything, but I'm begging you. Please talk to me. I need to make things right, even if just to apologize properly. I'm staying at my mom's house. Please just give me 5 minutes. That's all I ask. Lisa. I crumpled the letter and tossed it in the kitchen trash. 5 minutes wouldn't undo months of betrayal. That Friday, I decided to go out. It had been weeks since I'd done anything normal, and I needed a break from the house and its haunting silence. I hit a local bar downtown, ordered a whiskey neat, and found a seat in the corner where I could watch the crowd. There, I ran into an old college friend, Peter. We hadn't spoken in years, but he recognized me immediately. He pulled up a chair and launched into conversation as if no time had passed. So how's married life treating you? He asked after a while, grinning over his craft beer. I hesitated. The question hit harder than expected. It's complicated, I said finally. Complicated? His grin faded. What's going on? The words spilled out before I could stop them. I told him everything. The affair, the video, the dinner party, the fallout. By the time I finished, Peter was staring at me in stunned silence. Damn, he said finally. That's brutal. Yeah, I muttered, swirling the last of my whiskey in the glass. You're a better man than me, he shook his head. If that happened to me, I'd probably lose it. Hell, I might throw Ryan into a ditch. I managed a bitter laugh. Trust me, I thought about it. He leaned back, his expression turning serious. But hey man, don't let this consume you. I get it. What they did was unforgivable. But revenge only goes so far. At some point, you've got to move on. Otherwise, they win. His words stuck with me as I drove home that night. I hated to admit it, but he was right. I had destroyed Lisa and Ryan's lives, but it hadn't brought the closure I thought it would. I sat in my driveway for a long time, staring at the house. It felt empty and lifeless, a reflection of the void in my chest. I didn't know what moving on looked like, but I knew one thing. I couldn't keep living in the wreckage of what Lisa had done. As I was climbing into bed, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from Ryan himself. Mark, I've lost everything. My job, my reputation, my kids. But I swear to God, I'll make sure you lose just as much. You think this is over? It's not. Ryan. I stared at the screen, the words blurring before my eyes. A cold wave of anger swept over me. No, Ryan, I muttered to myself as I deleted the email. It's already over. You just don't know it yet. The email from Ryan stayed with me, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. His desperation was palpable, his threat hollow but dangerous. A man with nothing left to lose is unpredictable, and I couldn't afford to underestimate him. I forwarded the email to my lawyer with a brief message attached. If he makes another move, I want to know my options. My lawyer's reply came quickly. This is harassment. If he contacts you again, we can escalate legally. Sit tight for now. But sitting tight wasn't my style. If Ryan wanted war, I wasn't about to let him dictate the terms. The next day, I went into overdrive and started a deep dive into Ryan's past. I combed through every scrap of information I could find about him. It didn't take long to uncover a few skeletons in his closet. Financial troubles, a history of sketchy business practices, and a string of ex-girlfriends who had nothing good to say about him. One particularly damning thread on a local real estate forum described how he had swindled a client out of a deposit on a luxury condo deal, then ghosted when they tried to confront him. It was perfect. Ryan's carefully curated image was already in shambles, but this would be the nail in the coffin. I compiled everything into a neat package complete with screenshots and sent it anonymously to a local journalist known for exposing fraudsters. I didn't have to wait long before I saw results. By the end of the week, Ryan's face was plastered across the news, his past laid bare for everyone to see. Meanwhile, Lisa tried again. Another letter appeared on my doorstep, this one longer than the last. Mark, I know you probably hate me and I can't blame you for that, but I'm begging you to hear me out. Please let me explain what happened, why it happened. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to understand. It wasn't just about you or Ryan. It was about me, how lost I felt, how trapped I've been in a life I didn't know how to fix. You were my everything, Mark, and I ruined it. I know that now. If you can't forgive me, I understand. But please don't shut me out completely. Let me try to make amends, even if just for my own peace of mind. Lisa. I set the letter down and stared at it for a long time. Her words felt desperate and hollow, yet human. For a fleeting moment, I wondered if I should give her that chance. Not to reconcile, as there was no coming back from what she did, but to explain. Let her face me and say the words she clearly couldn't write. Then I thought of the video, the lies, the dinner party, and the chaos I had been living in for weeks. Whatever Lisa had to say, it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. I didn't reply. Later that evening, I got another call from my lawyer. Got an update on Ryan, he said. He filed a preliminary harassment complaint. Nothing serious yet, but it could escalate if you're not careful. Of course he did, I muttered. What's his angle? Hard to say. Probably grasping at straws, trying to salvage what's left of his reputation. But we'll stay ahead of him. Just don't engage directly. Let him dig his own grave. I hung up feeling a mix of frustration and resolve. Ryan might be trying to claw his way out of the pit I had thrown him in, but he was only digging himself deeper. Every move he made added to the growing pile of evidence against him. The next morning brought another surprise, a package on my doorstep. There was no return address, no note, just a plain brown box. I brought it inside cautiously, half expecting it to explode. When I opened it, I found a thick stack of documents and a USB drive. The documents were copies of emails, hundreds of them, between Lisa and Ryan. Some were mundane, others explicit, but they all painted a clear picture of their relationship. The USB drive contained even more damning evidence, Photos, videos, and voice memos that Ryan had apparently recorded without Lisa's knowledge. I stared at the contents, my mind racing. This wasn't just ammunition. It was a bombshell. Someone had handed it to me on a silver platter. But who? A single thought occurred to me. Amanda Thompson, Ryan's ex-wife. She had mentioned their kids seeing the video and how furious she was at him. Had she decided to take matters into her own hands? It was the only explanation that made sense. I spent hours going through the files, piecing together the timeline of their affair. It was worse than I had imagined. They hadn't just been sleeping together. They had been plotting to build a life behind my back. Trips, plans, even discussions about selling properties and moving in together. The betrayal cut deeper with every word I read. I read late into the night. That evening, I made my move. I forwarded the most incriminating emails to Ryan's remaining clients, ensuring the final nails were driven into his professional coffin. Then, I uploaded the USB contents to a secure cloud drive, just in case I needed them later. Lisa called that night, the first time in weeks. I answered it. "Mark," she said, her voice trembling. "Please just talk to me." "I know everything," I said coldly. "Every email, every plan, every lie. You think you can fix this? You think there's anything left to fix?" She started sobbing, but I didn't give her a chance to reply. "You chose this, Lisa. You and Ryan both. Now you can live with it." I hung up, her cries still echoing in my ears. The next day, I received a final message, this time from Amanda. "Mark, thought you might want to see the truth for yourself. Consider it my way of evening the score. Ryan won't be bothering anyone anymore. Amanda." I read the message twice, then deleted it. Whatever her motives, Amanda had given me the tools to end this once and for all, and I had no intention of wasting them. Amanda Thompson's gift had turned the tide in a way I couldn't have imagined. With every piece of evidence, Ryan and Lisa's betrayals were laid bare, and their world unraveled further. But I wasn't done yet. Not until the damage was complete. The next morning, I sat at my desk with the USB drive plugged into my laptop. The files Amanda had sent were more comprehensive than I had initially realized. Among the emails and texts were snippets of audio recordings, conversations between Ryan and Lisa that revealed just how calculating they had been. In one clip, Ryan's smooth, arrogant voice made my blood boil. "She's not going to leave him unless we make it impossible for her to stay. You need to start planting doubts. Make him think he's the problem." Lisa's reply was quieter, hesitant. "I don't know, Ryan. It's not that simple. He's not a bad guy. I feel stuck." "Stuck?" Ryan laughed bitterly. "If you really cared, you'd have left by now. You want out? Then make it happen. Stop waiting for him to figure it out." I clenched my fists as the recording ended. Hearing them plot my destruction was like a gut punch. They hadn't just been sneaking around. They had been scheming to tear apart everything I had built. This was no longer just about exposing them. It was about erasing them. I compiled the most damning evidence into a single file and attached it to an anonymous email addressed to the top executives at Ryan's development firm. The audio recordings, emails, and timeline of their deceit painted a picture of a man who was not only untrustworthy but manipulative and dangerous. Within hours, the firm released a public statement severing all ties with Ryan and banning him from their offices. Ryan had officially hit rock bottom. Lisa, meanwhile, tried one last desperate move. She showed up at the house unannounced, her face pale and drawn, eyes rimmed red. "Mark, please," she begged, standing on the porch as if waiting for an invitation in. "I just need to talk to you. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, blocking her entry. "You have nothing to say that I want to hear." Her voice cracked as tears streamed down her face. "I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I let him manipulate me and I—" "Stop," I interrupted, my tone cutting. "Don't you dare blame this on him. You knew what you were doing. Every lie you told, every moment spent with him. It was all you." She flinched, her shoulders shaking as sobs racked her body. I know, and I hate myself for it. But Mark, I still love you. I always have." "Love?" I laughed bitterly. "You don't even know the meaning of the word. If you loved me, you wouldn't have destroyed everything we built together." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I want you to leave," I said coldly. "For good. Go find Ryan, if he still has room for you in whatever's left of his life." Her expression crumbled. For a moment, I thought she might argue, but instead she turned and walked away, her steps slow and unsteady. I closed the door without watching her leave. That evening, I received another email from Amanda. It included a link to a local news article. The headline read, "Former property mogul Ryan Thompson faces mounting legal and personal troubles." I clicked on the article and scanned the contents with grim satisfaction. Ryan's financial misconduct had been exposed, several former clients were preparing lawsuits, and his license had been suspended pending investigation. His reputation was in ruins. At the bottom of the article, a single sentence made me pause. Ryan Thompson has not responded to requests for comment and is reportedly seeking professional help for personal issues. A flicker of unease stirred within me. Professional help? Had I pushed him too far? The thought was fleeting, drowned out by satisfaction knowing he was finally facing the consequences of his actions. Over the next few weeks, the chaos began to settle. Lisa stopped contacting me, and Ryan disappeared from public view entirely. The house, once filled with the weight of her lies, felt lighter. But it wasn't over. Not completely. One evening, as I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone, a notification popped up. It was an email from Amanda. "Mark, Ryan checked himself into a rehab facility. Thought you'd want to know. He won't be bothering you again. As for Lisa, she's staying with her mother. Don't know if you care, but she seems broken. Hope this brings you some closure. It's the least you deserve. Amanda." I stared at the email for a long time before closing it. Closure. Such a simple word, but it felt impossibly far away. A few days later, one last unexpected delivery arrived. Divorce papers. Lisa had signed them without contesting anything, leaving everything to me. The house, assets, even her share of our savings. It was as if she wanted to disappear completely, to erase herself from my life. Maybe that was for the best. That night, I stood in the living room, looking around at the empty space. The silence was heavy, but it didn't feel suffocating anymore. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe. The war was over. The months after Lisa's departure passed quietly, though echoes of what happened still lingered in the background. The house felt different, emptier, but not in a way that made me ache. It was a clean slate. For the first time in years, I felt like I could start again. I threw myself into work, rebuilding the parts of my life that Lisa had unraveled. The weight of her betrayal lessened with time, though it left scars I knew I would carry forever. Some days I caught myself replaying the events in my mind, the video, the dinner party, the emails, and wondered if I could have handled things differently. But those thoughts never lingered long. What was done, and I had no regrets. Ryan, as Amanda had promised, disappeared entirely. I heard through mutual contacts that he had lost everything. His career, his social standing, even access to his kids. Rumor had it he was living out of a small rental apartment, far from the luxury he once flaunted. He was a ghost now, a reminder of what happens when you live a life without integrity. Lisa, too, faded from my world. After signing the divorce papers, she moved to another state according to her mother. I didn't ask for details. I didn't want to know. The woman I'd once loved was gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognized. One evening, I found myself sitting on the back porch with a glass of aged whiskey in hand, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The air was still heavy with the hum of cicadas. I thought about the life I had built with Lisa, the good memories that now felt tainted. But for the first time in a long time, the thought didn't fill me with anger. It just felt distant. The truth was, I didn't miss her anymore. Not the woman she had become, at least. What I missed was the version of us I thought was real, the laughter, the partnership, the love. But those things had been an illusion. Now that I had peeled back the curtain, I was finally free. A week later, I received an unexpected package from Amanda. Inside was a single envelope and a handwritten note. The note from Amanda read, "Mark, I debated sending this, but thought you deserved to know. Lisa wrote this before she left. I found it while clearing out some of Ryan's things. Whatever you choose to do with it, I hope it helps you move forward. Amanda." I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Inside was a letter from Lisa, dated shortly after the dinner party. Her handwriting was shaky, the words uneven. "Mark, if you're reading this, I've already left. I couldn't stay, not after what I did, not after what you showed me. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. Honestly, I don't know if I deserve forgiveness, but I need you to understand. Everything I did, the lies, the betrayal, it wasn't because of you. It was because of me. I lost myself somewhere along the way, and instead of trying to fix it, I took the easy way out. You were a good husband, a good man, and I threw it all away for something that meant nothing. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. I hope you find someone who sees the good in you, someone who values you in the way I should have. You deserve happiness, Mark. You always did. Lisa. I read the letter twice, then set it down on the counter. Her words stirred something in me. Not forgiveness, not anger, but closure. For the first time, I felt like I could let go of the weight I had been carrying. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Life didn't go back to what it was before. It never could. But it moved forward. I started seeing someone new, a colleague I had known for years, but never thought about in a romantic way. She was kind, funny, and genuine. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. One evening, as we walked along a quiet trail, she asked about my past. I hesitated, unsure how much to share. Then I realized I didn't need to hide it. What happened with Lisa was part of my story, but it didn't define me. I went through something messy, I admitted to her, but it taught me what I want and what I'll never settle for again. She smiled and laced her fingers with mine. Well, I hope I'm what you want. You are, I said simply, and for the first time I truly believed it. As the sun set behind the trees, I realized something I hadn't been able to see before. Revenge might have given me power in the moment, but letting go was what gave me peace.